Welcome to the Relocated South African, the show for navigating immigration from South Africa for a better future. I'm your host, Jan Hugo from Lagos in Portugal. Check out our website, www.therelocatedsoutafrican.com. It contains a whole lot of useful information and details of all episodes to date. If you want to interact with us or comment on our discussions or participate in an interview, contact me on jan@therelocatedsoutafrican.com. And if you like our content, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? Today I welcome from Stellenbosch, Dr Mario Denton. Welcome, Mario.
Yes, welcome again from my side. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to this season.
Okay, lovely. I'm also looking forward. So let me just quickly give you a bit of background on Mario. Dr. Mario Denton is a well-known South African industrial and organizational psychologist, coach, teacher, and speaker with over 30 years of experience. He's known internationally for his work in leadership, development, emotional intelligence, career guidance, personal growth, and what he calls the 7 life essentials: business, career, family, financial, personal, relationship, and spiritual. His motto is born to encourage, and he runs programs like online courses, coaching sessions, and free encouragers, connect groups focused on building uplifting, resilient mindsets. So yeah, welcome, Mario. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. I'm ready for it.
Okay. I recently interviewed Mario's son, Desmond Denton, on the show. Desmond, as you may know, is a renowned filmmaker, left South Africa to go and live in Washington, D.C. In the U.S., he made a documentary, which is available on many platforms, including Amazon Prime and Apple TV, on immigration and particular to the U.S. The documentary is called The Journey Home and features Desmond's own kids being interviewed and talking about how they had to adapt to life in the U.S. and how they miss South Africa. So that's a lot to start with. I always ask my guests just to give us a little bit of background, where they're from, grew up, studied. And, obviously, in your case, do you also have other children that live abroad?
Yes. A little bit of background about my corporate experience. And I've been a group executive HR. And I've really enjoyed that because, once you've studied like a master's degree and in psychology, this was really helping me. But then one day my wife said to me, there's a vacancy at the business school. And she said, this is the time for you to move on to the business school. And then I realized, I wonder if these business schools can really pay you well. But then the professor said to me, at this business school, yes, you're going to take a drop in salary, but if you do consulting and if you want to do some international traveling, then you're going to enjoy it. And this was really my biggest part of seeing the world. So I have lecturing about 9, 10, 11 times in France and Germany, all the English-speaking countries in Africa. And then my highlight is always, 12, 13 times in Hawaii. So this was really part of my international experience. And that kept me busy. And this is why I love talking to you on your program. But I'm bringing into this program maybe a slightly different style, because sitting on as an industrial psychologist, I've done my PhD with the topic of derailment. Why do people derail? And then I've also looked at another PhD, of professional bullying. So today I want to unpack, how do we look at this topic from a different perspective? So yes, I'm looking forward to your questions here.
Okay, awesome. That's very interesting. Just in terms of family, so Desmond, you have another son?
Yes, that's why another son is from New York. They're visiting us right now. And listen to this. If you got 2 sons overseas and the third one is saying he wants to be in Japan, I think I've got a lot of experience about this topic, what to do and what not to do. And specifically, I visited them already 3 times. Desmond visited us in South Africa, but New York, the son in New York, visited us first time, and he's currently with us, but this is his first time in 7 years. So I've got lots
Awesome.
of experience about how do you close the gap, and how do we promote and how do we motivate them. And it was tough times because he left to South Africa overseas just before COVID time. We missed that. And when we walked in Washington, D.C., and it was COVID time a couple of months later, wow, that was an adjustment. So, yes, I think I've got a lot of
Well,
experience to talk
there you
about
have
this
awesome
topic.
experience. I look forward to that. So, if we get into the debate, let me ask you maybe a little bit of a leading question. Do you think immigration is a selfish decision?
My first reaction was no. And let me explain to you why I'm saying no. Because if you unpack the word immigration, selfish, yes or no, you got to look at what I call different perspectives. How do you look at the word? And this is why you're going to see it tonight. I'm going to do it a couple of times. Let's say just unpack this. So if you unpack immigration from, let's call it the spiritual intelligence perspective. Now, these type of people start saying, who are you? Why do you exist? Where do you see yourself? What is happiness? What do you want to do in life? So these guys look at the same concept that you have and say, well, listen, hey, I'm on earth for a short reason, for a short time. Maybe it's my time to move on to another country. And I call it this the typical the spiritual intelligence perspective, not about religion, it's a deeper meaning. But then you do have another person who's looking from an MBA perspective. And you will hear the words MBA. Say, well, listen, maybe there's a business opportunity. I see gaps, and this is why my sons, it was not a case of leaving South Africa because they were unhappy and they're afraid and they were running away. This was an MBA perspective. And you will see later, I'm going to talk to you about this. Why is it so that I see sometimes there's not enough oxygen for some of our young adults? But you apply the MBA approach, and there's nothing wrong. Even if you are bold on the MBA approach, you can even use the Japanese technique of ikigai. And I've helped my children with that. So listen, what do you love? Why are you right now? Where do you see yourself? And if there's a business opportunity, go for it. So, and you hear me I'm just giving you two perspectives. There are lots of other perspectives also, but I think it's a good way to start by sharing you those two perspectives.
I think that's very useful because my question about the selfishness, and we'll get into the family thing, is, from a where does it become a thing of I'm doing this? It may be selfish relative to my parents and whoever's around me, but it is a growth opportunity and therefore I'm doing it. So is the word selfish correct to use in that sense? But the family issue comes up in so many discussions. It will be very interesting to hear your perspective. And I mean, if you look at it from the point of view of working with leaders and individuals, what do you see as the biggest emotional and mindset challenges that South Africa face now? I mean, you've mentioned the I love the idea and the oxygen thing, and what does that really involve?
Yeah, it's simply saying, do we still have the same opportunities? And I know I've done, and now as a psychologist, I've done about 2,050 career direct assessments. And I'm going to give you the reason for that. And then I look at personality, I look at the interest, I look at specifically values, and I look at skills. Then, as soon as I've done that exercise, I say, well, listen, let's talk about possibilities. What can you do with your degree or your diploma? Then I realize I'm giving him advice, but say, Mario, I need a job. Where do I get into the workplace? How do I get into the market? So I've seen this with lots of assessments. So when I do assessments, these type of things, part of it is to say, well, listen, can I look at your international perspective? What do you see? And do you see opportunities? And there's nothing wrong with that. And this is why, I'm looking at slightly different because I have done an assessment of all my sons. And even to give you another example, when Desmond, my son, said his wife is not going to be from South Africa, then I realized he's serious into this thinking of moving overseas. But, she visited us, and one of the first things that I've done an assessment on her personality, on her skills, on her values. And then I realized, yes. And she said to me one day, Dad, you can fake these type of things. And I said, listen, no, 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 no. I'm too long in the business. I've already checked your consistency. I've checked faking good and faking bad. They're still married today, 3 lovely grandchildren. But this is part of checking what is available. So, yeah, there must be a fit. Very important.
I mean, we have to say here, for those who don't know, that she's Russian. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And
So-
and again, we've got so many different worldviews. How do we see the world? How do we look at different people, different culture, different perspectives? Sometimes you say, no, no, this person is not from South Africa. So how do you you can't be serious. I'm saying, no, work these type of things out. There's a plan for it. You're on earth for a reason, for a season, for a time. You must use it. Just a couple of thoughts. No, I love your program so far. Keep going, my brother.
So, in this process of assessing people and helping them in their career, would you say there are people who just should not immigrate?
Definitely, yes, no doubt about it. And now you're going to say, but give me some reasons. You can look at it from a lot of reasons, but let's look at it from emotional intelligence perspective. This person has got a low self-image, or maybe this person, something happened with a person. There's some pain in the past. There's some unfinished business. There's disappointments. And now they realize they want to fly and they want to get overseas because this is the way forward. But I'm saying sometimes if you've got a lot of problems, you fly over to another part of the world and you take that problems with you. So this is what we often call it the escapist. The escapist say, well, this is my opportunity. I want to get out. And I'm saying, yeah, that's fine. But let's apply the reality check. And in emotional intelligence, they've got a beautiful concept called reality testing. And this is important because sometimes you want to move over. So just be real. These are real cases. Yeah, I know definitely should everybody, or is it for each and everybody? And my answer is no. I would not recommend it. I will do a decent case, a decent analysis, looking at the pros and the cons and the risk, looking at the feasibility of all these type of things before we're going to say, yes, go for it. Very important question.
Interesting that a psychologist who deals with parents who stay behind, she made the point on the podcast that you must never think that leaving can fix a relationship that is not good. So it's not going to work. If it's not going to work in South Africa, it's also not going to work overseas. On the other hand, conversely, if you think what makes a person uniquely qualified to immigrate, you mentioned emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I personally believe is that some of the reasons if you want to go overseas is I want to come back to my first perspective. How do you see yourself? Why do you want to go overseas? And this is why you're going to make a business case for it. And so, well, listen, yes, it makes sense. It's not only just for survival. There must be a deeper reason, although there's lots of stress and there's disappointments. And I call it sometimes, we are out of line with what's always happening in reality and all these type of things. That's why people want to move over. But I've checked my son, who's now with me at this stage, after 7 years in New York, and we've been there 3 times. My role as a parent was to support him, to encourage him, to assess his emotional intelligence, to make sure that they've got the right friends, the right contacts. And there's a role for us to play. So I think sometimes even parents can be selfish if they want to say, no, these are my 2, 3 children. I want to look after them. And I'm saying if they're sitting in the room and listen to this and there's not enough oxygen, what are you going to do? Just you kind of leave them that they can get some place where they can breathe properly and have decent oxygen. So just to build on what you're asking, why is it so, and even the role of parents also.
That's very interesting. And I mean, so many people who immigrate or thinking about immigrating do so in seeking better opportunities, safety, quality of life. In your view, how often is that decision driven by external circumstances versus internal dissatisfaction or maybe unfulfilled potential?
Definitely, and specifically the impact of peer pressure. In other words, you are doing it because this is the in thing to do it. You know what I mean? And then you suddenly realize, well, maybe I must also do it, or my family must also do it. Just to give you a simple example, about 2 days ago, I've met one of my old MBA student friends. And I just asked him, tell me more about where are you right now? Where are your children? And this is typical when you ask people in South Africa these days. You know, most of the sons and the daughters are somewhere overseas. So is this, in my case, in my time, it was not the case. These type of things I'm saying, this is what's happening. This is the real world. Get used to it. Um, I know it's not easy, and I know we're going to talk about it. Why do I believe it's tough, and what we can do it? But I think we need to prepare the people for these positions. And do my children wants to come back? There's always place for them. There's a house in Pringle Bay here close to Hermanus. You know, they're always welcome to visit me. We're going to have a fantastic time. We're going to braai still boerewors, not the barbecues. So there's place for them to join us, but I'm saying is I'm a type of person who will listen. Life is in front of you. Make use of your opportunities and do the best to your ability.
Okay, very, very good. Uh, the other question that linked to that, we talk about looking for opportunities, but also we always talk about the push and the pull. So often
Yeah.
when people experience trauma, you know, how does one deal with that? So it's a fact of life in South Africa that people experience that, and sometimes they just want to get out, but that may not be the right decision. Again,
Yeah.
um, that trauma in the process of making a decision is must be a very important issue.
Definitely. But you know, it's I think the key thing is, and you touch on that word trauma. How do you cope with this? How do you cope with trauma? How do you cope with disappointments? How do you cope with a hijack? How do you cope when these type of things happen? And this is crucial because this is where I sometimes believe we need to be giving people guidance. You know, because there's always going to be trauma. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There's going to be disappointments. Um, and trauma means sometimes you're going to feel as parents, you're going to feel lonely, you're going to feel sad, you're going to feel you are not close to your loved ones. You're going through these different phases. So my advice is always, even depression, these type of things, if you don't check out for it, this is going to happen. So there's this normal phases from depression and anxiety and things like that. You reach the phase, well, what is life? There's no purpose in life anymore. A short answer to your question is trauma is real. How do you cope with it? Get some training. And I love to talk about coping skills. It's not easy. And you know, let me answer the question. Do you think it was easy for me? But I think the real question is, Mario, you talk about your experience, but what about your wife? And I promise you, when I talk about my wife, you will easily see tears in her eyes. But we've made a commitment, these type of things. We send our children overseas. They've got our go ahead. But this is why I want to share with your audience something that we've done on a daily basis. We've decided we will pray for them. On Monday for Dwayne, on Tuesday for his wife Zani, on Wednesday for Desmond, on Thursday for his wife Vera, on Friday for my other son who wants to go to Japan, Marinas, on Saturday for the 2 grandchildren, and on Sunday for the other 3 grandchildren. So we are still involved. So this is why it's crucial for us as a role as parents. We need to be I want to say educated. There's a new role for us to play, definitely.
Okay, that's fantastic. I must say, I think, you know, the whole faith debate comes into a lot of these decisions, and often people talk about how important their faith is. And you know, same time you talked about your wife, but you talk about a couple going across, and when the couple don't see things the same way, the wife wants to go back because she's missing her parents or whatever. I mean, it's really critical that you've got to be on the same page when you make that move. That
Absolutely
comes
right.
out in every discussion. Yeah. And I did ask the question about, you know, the role that parents should play. And I think that's a wonderful answer because, again, it's for their good, it's for their growth. I think you're in a fortunate position that you can see them often. I'll get to that maybe a little bit later. What about parents that cannot do that? How does one cope? And it's probably part of this whole coping mechanism. And we know
Yeah.
there's a whole practice built on this of helping people cope with that.
But it's a tough one. Can we quickly answer that one?
Yeah,
Specifically, if I'm looking at myself, we are three brothers. My other two brothers, they and the family, they are close to each other. There's nobody's overseas. I'm the only one with two kids already overseas. So I often, when I thought about it, said, listen, guys, you're very lucky. You've got your children close to you and you can talk, you can walk, you can go and visit them. Um, and I know there's a gap. There's no doubt about it. If we look at the photos of the last 6, 7 years, there is a gap. We miss something. But I love it when I talk to my grandchildren. And, you know, even with Vera, when they talk a little bit of Russian back to me, then I realize, oh, I'm missing out. They are not so good in Afrikaans anymore. You know what I mean? But is this the real world? Yes. I want them to be happy. I want them to know why they are there. I want them, and I check it. I often check it. To what extent can you still enjoy yourself? It is tough. There was specifically for our grandchildren moving over to America. There was still lots of bullying because they thought they're coming from Africa. And they were fighting against all these perceptions and are you one of those who's now leaving and you are unhappy and all these type of things. This was the real stuff, the real battles that they didn't expect, because sometimes when you go overseas you realize it's going to be perfect, it's going to be no problems. No, the real world is you're going to miss South Africa, you're going to miss the country, you're going to miss the
yeah,
great times together.
absolutely. I must say the one thing, because, as you know, we're immigrants living in Portugal, and our kids live all over the world. What we've done, which I find it's such a small thing, but it's amazingly useful. We got one of these electronic photo frames that's in our
Mm,
lounge. And when you walk into the lounge, it comes on at 6 in the morning till 9 at night. And it
beautiful.
rolls through photos, and you can send from your phone. So every time we have new photos, we send it to the photo frame, and it just, you see your kids and you see your family, and it's actually a nice way to stay in touch. I mean,
But I want to
uh,
build on what you touch on the frame. Um, One thing that I realize that we must do as parents is when it's your grandchildren or your children's birthdays, then you got to do something special. Now, I want to share with you the way that I'm doing it because this is something that I've learned. I was in Oklahoma on the Character First Institute. And since those days, they train you on the 49 character qualities. So if it's somebody's birthday, you don't send him a WhatsApp note, say, well, congratulations. You can phone him on WhatsApp or you can phone him. But what you do a feedback session based on character. And so, well, listen, son, this is your birthday today. Desmond or Dwayne, this is your birthday today. But when I'm thinking of you, there's the following character qualities that are standing out for me. The fact that you are, you can use words like, say, for instance, you are adaptable. The fact that you are so punctuality high on your list. The fact that you are diligent, that you're working hard. Today, I want to honor you. I want to recognize you for your diligence, for your discernment, and for your thoroughness. Enjoy your birthday. Have a great time. But you reinforce 2 or 3 character qualities versus sending out a note to say, well, listen, congratulations, it's your birthday.
that is absolutely awesome. What a wonderful idea. I must remember that. That's really great. So just building on that part of the discussion, the fact that people immigrate, uh, I always say that immigration has a cost, whether it's financial,
Mhm.
emotional, physical. There's a
Yes.
there's a huge cost in moving to another country. Do you agree that this is a price to be paid for growth, or how do you define this price that you're paying? If you have to sit in part of this decision, is it's going to cost me a lot of money, emotional, whatever. But what is the upside of doing that?
Yeah, you're right. There's going to be cost involved, but there's some of the cost that you can actually you can manage it. In other words, financially and all these type of things. But I think the biggest cost is the fact that you're going to lose out on certain things in life. And for that, and for relationships and spending time together, and for that, it's difficult to put a cost to it. How much does it cost us? So, yeah, the first part is you can manage it. But other words, there's going to be cost involved. It's not as expensive. And I know, to give you a good example, now that my son is here from New York, no, he's just keep on comparing prices. And then I said, well, Dad, it's cheap here, it's cheap here. But at the same time, when I visit Washington, and I've done some work there, and my son said to me, Dad, charge them in dollars. So an interesting part of the world. I'm also learning, but I know this things is costing us. But it's in South Africa. It still depends on how we look at it. But if you're coming from overseas, they look at us. Well, it's still cheap. You can still live here. And if you ask me, and now I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial, And the question is, Mario, if you have children now and they are 10, 15 years old. Talk to me about that. And my advice is slightly different. These days, I'm saying to be in South Africa, to have children going to schools, it's not the same anymore. And it's definitely not going to be not the same like in our time. But if you want to come back to South Africa and you want to stay in a Pringle Bay holiday house, you want to enjoy it, and you're not part of the politics, you know what I mean? You enjoy your rugby. I think it's a great time to be back. So even for people moving overseas, working for 10, 15, 20 years, and then still retire one day and having a great time at a holiday house or a place somewhere to the ocean, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I
I
think it's a
agree.
great idea.
Yeah, and I've spoken to people that young family lived in Ireland for 9 years, got Irish passports. The kids were born there, and now they live back in the Cape, and they're very happy. And they continue working for their
Mm,
overseas company, earning euros
mm.
and living in Cape Town. That's not a bad result, I must say. Um,
Definitely not.
but now, we talked about this cost, and I know you have a different approach, but I think there are families where the parents almost build their lives around their children and their grandchildren, um, and then they leave. And I've heard this now from a number of people in New Zealand, for instance, that's really far away. That it's not that easy to visit. People get older, and so on. And I mean, that's a really tough one to deal with. That almost the thought as a parent or grandparent that I'm not going to see my kids or my grandchildren other than on a screen. And I mean, how does one cope with that loss?
That's a tough one because it's real. It's absolutely real. As you're getting older, you start to realize the time for you to fly overseas and visiting the children, it's not the same anymore. My point is, and it's coming back, and it's not an easy thing. But if you don't make peace with it, who's going to be the unhappy person? Your family's going to overseas, love ones, your children. You sitting in South Africa, you are lonely, you miserable. And this is why it's coming back. What is your role on earth? What is your purpose on earth? So although the children are overseas and you don't see them maybe so often, don't let those type of loneliness get into you and say, listen, now I'm not important anymore, and they don't phone me this like in the past. I know what's going to happen, and depression is real. As a psychologist, I see this, and the good advice is you can't say, well, start drinking some medicine, go on tablets, go on do this, and it's such issue that personally you're going to work through it and you're going to adjust this. And this is why I want to use another concept in the positive psychology. So your words that they use, these type of things, it's like saboteurs. They're attacking you day in and day out. It's like, and I want to use the example, there's a fighting taking place. You're not good enough because your children leave you, and now you're sitting here and you're lonely. So you've got two choices. Are you going to listen to these guys who's attacking you all the time? Or are you going to say, no, I love them. I appreciate them. They're going to do a good job. They're not going to disappoint me. I'm praying for them. I'm standing in the gap for him. I'm enjoying them. So every time, you see what I'm saying is the self-talk, the declarations for those people who've got loved ones overseas and they don't see them often. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So as long as you can keep yourself, you got to keep yourself busy. Otherwise, you're going to get crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think of the concept of sharing? people that are lonely, that because there's so many parents in the same boat, and seeking out other people who are going through the same and kind of experiencing, call it trauma, in the
Yeah.
same way. Does it help to share, to be with other people who feel the same?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's crucial. And when you share, and this is something that I want to just to quickly highlight, there are 3 levels of sharing. And let me explain this because I often see this. Sometimes those people share, but the first one is zone of comfortable discussion. How are you? Are you coping? Yes, thank you very much. I'm missing my loved ones. And they're talking about zone of comfortable discussions. The next level is what we call zone of uncomfortable discussion. You say, well, listen, I'm feeling sad. I'm missing the children. Now you can see the tone is different. And then the third level is what we call the issue is, I cannot take this anymore. I've got to do something. Um, I am seriously in need. So that's why you're really helping out. So when you've got a small group of people you can help them. I call it your inner circle. It's a non-negotiable. But don't talk only the first level of conversations. Go into the deeper levels. Be a little bit vulnerable. I know between myself and my wife is very vulnerable. As I explained to you, is when she talked to other couples and other people and talking, you say, Marine, what about your children? She will often cry. But I told her that's a good sign because something is still working. I would not be happy if you don't even cry, you don't worry about the children, you're getting used to it, you are tough. You say, well, this is the way life is all about. Say, no. So no, the groups are a brilliant idea. Talk to your inner circle. Be a little bit vulnerable. Tell how you share your feelings. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Good idea.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. So obviously, we've probably touched on this, but with everything that's happening in South Africa, economic and crime, and you can carry on the whole night talking about stuff that's not good. But if you have to talk to people and give them a balanced message about South Africa in 2026, people that are thinking about immigrating, what would that be? Immigrate and come back, or would it depend on the person?
In my case, I love storytelling. So I will go back and say, well, listen, I want to take you what happened in my life. And I will start by saying, when I left school, I was for 18 months doing compulsory military service. And I was spoiled in South Africa. Going to university in those days, there was only one black student. And we look after him because we realize if he's going to fail, this is not going to look good for our university. This was my lifestyle. Then at one stage, in 1994, I realized life is going to change. And at one stage, they asked me to do a project to help with training ANC and ANC members coming back to South Africa. So they asked me to get involved in this project. And the reason why I'm sharing the story is to say, well, listen, this is what's happening. In those days, I realized they interviewed me and they said, for which university are you coming from? And then I said, but if I'm going to tell them University of Stellenbosch, they're going to look at me and say, no, you guys you are the apartheid regime. And then I said to them, no, I studied at US. US is University of Stellenbosch, but US sounds very American. And so I've done a project for them. And I suddenly realized, hey, this is new. And then during my MBA students, and there was lots of students across the world who visiting South Africa. And I said to them, then listen, I'm not going to take you to Constantia. I'm not going to take you to Stellenbosch. I'm going to take you to District 6. I'm going to take you to Robben Island. I want to give you, and we're going to eat, and and one day I said to them, we're going to even eat a smiley. Now, I know a lot of people say, what is a smiley, Mario? But you will find this only in certain places. And the reason why I'm saying this, what happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years? And my professor said to me, I asked him one day, are we going to see a change in government since the ANC is in charge? And he said to me, not in your lifetime. No, 30 years later, last year with the previous election, ANC dropped below 50. It's amazing how these type of things happen. So I'm a type of person, if you ask me, what do you see for the future? Do you see some changes? I don't like the economy, the political games and the way we're treating and the corruption and all this stuff. But it's like one German student said to me, at least everything is not working in South Africa. So there must be lots of opportunities. And I fully agree with him. because, everything is not working. And this is
Yeah.
where one person said to me, I've done a conference one day, and a guy said to me, "You guys are lucky." And I said, "Why?" I said, "In the old days, you got all the jobs, but now you are entrepreneurs." And this is why I keep on telling people, get some skills. Don't wait for the universities. There are opportunities for us in South Africa. But if you put your CV and you circulate it, and you've got a great opportunity in other places of the world, enjoy it, go for it, do your risk analysis. Don't, if the, move. If you realize this is your chance, I'm giving you advice. I'm saying, well, listen, investigate, play around, go for it. Don't miss it.
Yeah, and I guess in a sense, people who will make it overseas will make it big in South Africa as well. So,
Yeah.
it's very good, skilled people. South Africans are hardworking; they're highly sought after, and so that's the other question. So now you're getting confronted with a client or somebody who comes to you and he says, "I've got all these skills. I've got a wonderful CV. I can go overseas, but I can also build a business and employ a lot of people and create something in South Africa." How does one answer that question? Should you go and look and then come back, or should you rather try and make it where you are?
I personally believe on both options. I think it's great to be creative, it's great to investigate, it's great to see what's available. But don't wait until you're 50, 60 years and now you want to leave overseas. Even my family said one day, "Are you going to join your grandchildren?" And I said, "No." "Are you going to join your children?" I said, "No." This was not something that and at one stage, I want to give you just an idea. At one stage, I thought I'm going to go overseas and permanently go and lecture there overseas. And I work out a decent plan. And I thought the next morning I said to my wife, "Check, we're going to go overseas and this is what's going to happen." My wife said, "Well, you can go. I'm not interested." And I said, "That's unfair. This is a business plan. Why you see?" Then I realized it's not about you, Mario. And I realized analyzing it these days, I was a little bit selfish. It's about me. I want to go overseas. But once you are married, and we are married, and we are 46 years married, and I'm always saying it's my first wife, it's my traditional wife, it's my African wife. So we are in a covenant agreement. So we are together. But then I realized there was a need for me to lecture overseas. And I've been overseas lecturing 5 weeks in Michigan. You name it, lots of these examples. So that was my really need, not necessary to go. But even if those days, if they said, "Listen, what about a 2-year contract?" I would strongly recommend it to people today. Go for it. Even today, earlier this morning, there was a guy here, 3 months. He was a project in Netherlands, 3 months. And we said, "Mario, I want to know if I need to go back." And I said, "Investigate, go for the opportunities." So, yeah, I'm still a businessman. I'm looking for opportunities, but you must
No, that,
enjoy it.
yeah,
Crucial.
yeah. I think that was one of the interesting things that came out of my discussion with Desmond as well, is that whilst the opportunities for filmmaking are in America, he's very positive about the opportunities in South Africa as well, and the movies
Mm,
that can be made in South Africa.
mm.
So it's great to go and skill up and then maybe come back and build something. Yeah. So so if I hear you correctly, you are still hopeful for the future of South Africa. It's not a matter of when you say to somebody, "Go and explore and go and look at opportunities." It's not because you're negative about South Africa, and in your
It's,
own kids'
yeah.
case as well.
Yeah, you see, to me, it's first of all, and I know this is part of my training. I'm looking from a business case perspective, and I'm saying it makes
Mm.
sense. Let's look into it. Does it make sense? Yes. Then I would like to say, well, listen, hey, let's look at the way you're going to do it. And then I would like to analyze them. What are the reasons for that? Because give me some reasons. Give me a business case. Give me a proposal. Put it on the table. How are you going to make money? How are you going to settle down and all these type of things? And then I'm saying, fine. If you don't have a proper decent case, and I'm saying, no, stay where you are. Even if it's still, you still realize and miss out on opportunities, but then you realize this is something not for you. You might got to make peace with that. And this is it, accept it. Just to keep on moaning and moaning and moaning and moaning and moaning and moaning and moaning. And what I think I've got a note here. I want to share this with you. Um, I've done some research on this was the topic of why do people often want to leave? Yes, and let me just share with you. Um, it's amazing why are certain people engaged in South Africa, want to stay here, and why are they disengaged? And it's amazing. And I know it's a little bit theory, but it's so important.
Love to hear.
How do you move from fully engaged to disengaged? The first one is there's a disappointment. Now, if there is a disappointment, like a hijack or a trauma or in the government or bad decisions, if you don't fix that disappointment, the next phase is discouragement. Now, what's happening? Now you're moving into the next phase. Now you discouraged about the school system, discouraged about this and discouraged about that. Once you have not fixed that, you move into a distance. Distance means there is a gap between me and the rest of the people and the environment and to my colleagues, and that's a distance. Then you move on to the next phase. You disconnect. You don't even you don't have functions together. You are, and I've noticed it with people who are even in America, who are still there from South Africa. They want to come back, but they've never connected. So disconnect is a real thing. After disconnect, there's discord. And then finally, you reach the phase of disengagement. But the point here that I want to raise, if people are disappointed, check the reasons. What can we do about it? And if you don't stop it, it's going to flow to discouragement, distance, disconnect, discord, and then finally you disengage and you realize there's no place for me here in South Africa.
Well, I think that is just so amazing. I've never thought about it like that. But I mean, the question, we're getting towards the end, but if people are now, and a lot of our listeners are still in South Africa thinking about immigration, not everyone has immigrated, but, in making that decision and making the right decision, I think what I'm hearing is that you've really got to understand the reasons. And I guess people like yourself can guide people, because if they, I spoke to somebody last night, just as an anecdote, who's in Canada, and I will interview him. He said they took 7 years before they actually left, because they were talking to mentors and people and what's the best for them. And I have to say, he's an actuary, but he, they analyze things in the nth degree. So I think that's fantastic to know. And so maybe the question is, should you seek guidance in this process and not rely on yourself?
Yeah, just the word guidance. It depends who you ask, and that's crucial. And it depends if you're going to only ask one person. So my advice is, I would rather, and I want to use my example. When people approach me and they say, well, listen, Mario, who are you? Are you a psychologist? Say, well, listen, as soon as you're going to call me a psychologist, and maybe then people's going to say there's something wrong with you. Are you a business consultant? I said, at the end of the day, I like to use the word, hey, I'm a mentor, a coach, and I want to guide you. But the way that I'm going to guide you, I'm going to look at it from different angles, and we're going to make a decent business case for yes and no. But then I do something powerful. I explain to them, you are the chief executive of your own life. Yes, I can guide you, but it's you're going to get in the plane. You're going to tell us where you are. So if those guys take their ownership, that's far more easier. But sometimes they don't take ownership. Somebody else is giving them advice. And it's sometimes dangerous, because if that advice is not working out, they blame the person. I'm saying, no, you are the CEO of your own life. You want to make a success of it. So in all my cases, my 3 sons, we were crying those days, and we were saying, well, listen, but at the end of the day, so, well, listen, you are the CEO of your own life. Go for it, make a difference, enjoy it. And I use the word, you've got our blessings. Blessing means you speak life over them. And speaking life means it's possible that you sometimes say, well, you're not going to enjoy it, and you think you're going to miss us. Are you definitely going to miss us? Say, no, speak life over these guys. And yeah, that's just crucial. But I think with all the stuff that I've said, my lifestyle, my perspectives, and my worldviews and all these type of things.
I think that is just fantastic, because, and just to add to what you're saying, is if somebody came to me and he said, should I leave and should I go and live in Portugal? I'll say, yeah, probably you should, because I like it. Yeah, it works for me, but it works for me. It may not work for you. I'm a different person. My kids live in Europe. I'm close to my kids. That's why I live here. But the other side also is, and this is where you say it's crucial who you speak to, is that the cost of making a mistake in this game is quite big. Paul Harris, in the interview that I had with him, he said, failed immigration takes 5 years out of your life. And, for for a younger person, for any person, 5 years is a long time to restart, and so it is important that you speak to the right people when you make these calls
Yeah, absolutely right. No, that's so true. Um,
and have
and
yeah.
I want to use my example. It's like flying from Johannesburg to, say, New York. If your GPS is out of 1 degree, and 1 degree means that you keep on having a long distance flight. It's going to go bigger and bigger and bigger. So if your immigration flight or alignment, if I can use that example, is already out of 2 or 3 or 4 degrees, where are you going to end up? So it's got to be crucial when you fly. And then also when you fly, there's going to be disturbances. And a reason for a disturbance is things is not going to work out. But as you keep on flying and there's some turbulence in the air, they're not going to take the plane down. They just say, well, listen, you're not going to get any drinks and coffee, and you can try what you want to do. They're not going to serve you. But it's your time to do a readjustment. So I'm
Mhm.
coming back from my point of view, when you send somebody overseas, train them properly, give them life skills, give them goal setting, realignment. In, yeah, those are crucial stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, there's just so much to take out of this conversation. I think we're getting to the end, Mario. Any sort of, I mean, that probably was a final thought, but any other final thoughts that we may have not covered in the discussion?
Yeah, I've got a note here that I'm saying, it's like if you are leaving overseas and you think the grass is greener on the other side, be careful about all these type of things. Even if you feel, now, hey, my friends are going overseas, this is the in thing to do. Is I personally believe that one of the biggest thing is your human hardware. Make sure that you know who you are. You know why you exist. You know where you're going. You know why you're on earth for this, for a purpose. And I want to close by saying double check your calling, your purpose, and your destiny. So if you are clear on your calling and your purpose and destiny, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in Malawi, you can be in Zimbabwe, you can be, but if that's where you need to be, your calling, your purpose, and your destiny is aligned. I don't want to be in a position. So listen, please don't go, and because I'm going to miss you. And I'm saying no ways. I think it's selfish. But your calling, and this is my closing words, make sure that your calling, your purpose, and your destiny is aligned, because that's why you're on earth for a reason. It's not easy, because I know a lot of people struggle with those concepts, but you can help people to make sure about those 3 words.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, thank you so much, Mario. I must say, I love hearing your views, and I can continue talking to you for a long time. But I really enjoyed that. If people want to contact you, I know you've got a website and YouTube. Maybe if you can give us those contact details. Uh,
Yeah, it's easy. They can just double check. It's Dr. Mario Denton, and I can forward you the details. If you search for it, you will find it. The things that we're doing, and I'm excited to help people to assess and give them a slightly different perspective. But as I explained to you, I like to measure things. I like to give them. I'm also like a medical doctor, because sometimes we've got cataracts over our eyes, and it's not cataracts that is the stuff that is, you don't see the opportunities. Um, and even if you do have what I call these managerial cataracts, you don't see the opportunities. Make sure that you see it right. Make sure that you open up and you see the opportunities. And they're welcome to contact me. They just search for Mario Denton. I just want to add something. When I was lecturing, and where was it and it was in Kenya. These guys called me Dr. Busara, because they said, "Oh, you've got wisdom." And I said, "Okay, right. I will accept that name." Then I was in Ghana, and in Ghana say, you are still the young one. And I'm saying, yes. And they said, listen, we're going to give you another name. Then I've done some lecturing in Botswana. They call me Mogotsi. I said, what is the meaning of that? They say, you're the one who's bringing fire. So I'm saying it doesn't matter where you are in life. You can make a difference. So for all those people who are overseas who immigrated, hey, I know you miss South Africa. It's not always easy. You miss your loved ones. but keep on playing your rightful role. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is still in front of us.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will also put your contact details on the show notes when the episode goes out. So
Thanks for
I
that.
really thank you, Mario. Thanks for sharing and making time for us. If you enjoyed my discussion with Mario and would like to hear more about the experiences of South Africans who have left South Africa, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? If you would like to share your own story, contact us on jan@relocatedSouthAfrican.com. Until next time.